The old radio was Ronnie's only solace in the echoing, abandoned Blackwood Asylum. He'd found the relic in the nurse's station, a bulky wooden box against the oppressive night. At 2:17 a.m., a low, rhythmic, static hum began. Not a station, just pure interference. Ronnie tapped, jiggled the dial. Nothing. Just that persistent, unsettling hiss. He blamed faulty wiring. By 2:45 a.m., the static shifted. A faint hissing undertone emerged, like ragged breaths chilling Ronnie's skin. He leaned in, then froze. A whisper cut through the static, dry as dead leaves. "Papa." Ronnie's blood ran cold. Alone in an asylum, he snatched his hand back, knocking the radio. The whisper vanished, replaced by static and ragged breathing. He grabbed his flashlight, its beam shaking through the gloom. Just my mind, he desperately thought. Then the radio spoke again, louder, clearer. A child's voice, soft and mournful, began to hum a lullaby. Innocent, yet profoundly wrong, it filled the vast, decaying lobby. The breathing beneath it was a distinct gasp. Ronnie stumbled back, his chair crashing. The lullaby continued, unwavering. He fumbled for his walkie-talkie, hand trembling. "Control. Control, this is Ronnie at Blackwood. I think there's someone here." Only static answered. The lullaby swelled, the child's voice chillingly playful. Then a faint, rhythmic thump, thump, thump. It sounded like a small ball bouncing. Ronnie's eyes darted to the main entrance, the heavy, bolted double doors. The thumping was coming from behind them. Thump, thump, thump. The lullaby became a distorted, high-pitched wail, the child's voice cracking with unnatural glee. A sickening scrape followed, as something heavy dragged against the other side of the door. Ronnie froze. A cold draft seeped from beneath the doors, carrying a faint, sweet, metallic smell. The radio's static screamed, a deafening shriek. Ronnie clapped his hands over his ears. When it died, the lullaby, breathing, thumping, all gone. Only the low, persistent, static hum remained. Ronnie slowly lowered his hands. The lobby was silent again, profoundly silent. The old clock resumed its tick-tock. The refrigerator hummed. Normal sounds returned. He looked at the radio. Its green dial glowed innocently. He looked at the main doors, still bolted, still closed, nothing amiss. But then his gaze fell to the floor beneath the crack. A small old red rubber ball lay there, and next to it, slowly seeping, was a thin, dark line of something wet and viscous, glistening faintly. It smelled faintly sweet, metallic. Ronnie backed away, eyes fixed on the ball and the stain. The static hum from the radio filled the entire world, a constant, mocking presence. The silence had only been a trick. The lullaby wasn't over. It had just found its way in. Leo, a 12-year-old, is left home alone in his large old Victorian house. His initial excitement fades when an unnatural, oppressive silence descends. Not just the absence of sound, but a profound, aching quiet. The house's clock stops, the fridge hums no more, and no outside noises penetrate its walls. Soon the silence is accompanied by chilling phenomena. Faint, childish whispers, objects moving on their own, and phantom handprints appearing on windows. The house grows intensely cold, especially the dining room, where the whispers are loudest. Driven by morbid curiosity, Leo records with his phone and sees translucent figures, a weeping family, on the screen, revealing the house's tragic past. Overwhelmed by their profound sorrow, Leo tries to escape but finds himself trapped as doors and windows refuse to open. On the final night, a chilling voice whispers, "You belong to the silence now," as a profound darkness seeps from his closet, carrying the scent of old blood. Leo closes his eyes, knowing the house is ready to consume him, adding his scream to its eternal clockwork. One stormy night, a group of teenagers, fueled by bravado and cheap thrills, dared each other to spend an hour inside. Liam, the most cynical of the bunch, scoffed at the superstitions, pushing open the creaking front door. A wave of stale, musty air, heavy with the scent of dust and something vaguely metallic, washed over them. The old house stood at the end of a winding, overgrown lane, its windows like vacant eyes staring out into the perpetual twilight of the surrounding woods. Locals whispered tales of the previous owner, a reclusive clockmaker named Elias Thorne, who had vanished without a trace decades ago, leaving behind only the rhythmic, unsettling tick-tock that sometimes echoed from the empty dwelling. Inside, the house was a labyrinth of shadows. Cobwebs draped like ancient lace from every surface, and the floorboards groaned under their hesitant steps. As they ventured deeper, a faint, insistent ticking began to permeate the silence. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, a steady, relentless pulse that quickened their heartbeats. They found Elias Thorne's workshop in the back, a room filled with disassembled clock parts, intricate gears, and countless unfinished mechanisms. In the center, on a workbench covered in a thick layer of dust, sat a grandfather clock, its face blank, its hands missing. Yet from this very clock the ticking was loudest, a frantic, desperate rhythm. Suddenly the temperature in the room plummeted. A cold, unseen breath brushed against Liam's neck. He spun around, but there was nothing. Then a faint, almost imperceptible scratching sound began to emanate from inside the grandfather clock. It grew louder, more frantic, like something trapped within was desperately trying to get out. One of the girls, Sarah, let out a terrified gasp. On the blank face of the clock, faint, glowing numbers began to appear, one by one, forming a time. 11:59. The scratching intensified, and the ticking became a deafening roar, like 1,000 tiny hammers striking metal. As the last number, a glowing 9, materialized, a grotesque skeletal hand adorned with rusted gears and springs burst through the clock face. It was followed by another, and then a gaunt, contorted face, its eyes hollow and filled with an ancient, mechanical rage. The teenagers screamed, scrambling for the door. The clockmaker, or what remained of him, was pulling himself free, his body a horrifying mosaic of flesh and clockwork. Elias Thorne, a seasoned lighthouse keeper, arrives at the remote, dilapidated Port Haven light, a lonely sentinel on a craggy island. His task is to assess its long-abandoned state. He settles into the attached, crumbling cottage, quickly noticing the profound, unnerving silence that permeates the isolated outpost, broken only by the relentless crash of waves. Soon this silence is punctuated by faint, childish whispers and inexplicable movements of objects, leaving Elias increasingly uneasy. The tragic revelation, driven by the growing paranormal activity, distinct giggles, desperate pleas of Papa, and cold touches. Elias searches the cottage for answers. He discovers an old newspaper, clipping detailing the Port Haven disaster of 1912. The lighthouse keeper, Thomas Finch, and his 2 young daughters were lost when a rogue wave engulfed their cottage during a hurricane. Elias realizes the voices aren't malicious, but the trapped echoes of a family, eternally replaying their final, tragic moments, desperate for release, guiding them home. During a violent storm that mirrors the fated night, Elias is in the lantern room when a clear child's voice whispers, "Light us home, Papa." Understanding their plea for release from the perpetual memory of their death, Elias works tirelessly to reactivate the ancient light mechanism. As the powerful beam cuts through the tempestuous darkness, he witnesses translucent figures of the Finch family standing in the light, calm and serene. The cold air lifts, the whispers fade, and as dawn breaks over the now peaceful sea, Elias knows his true purpose at Port Haven Light is fulfilled. The family finally guided home is at rest.